Football is officially happening as of today. Still a long way until the season actually happens, but spring ball has started in earnest today. So that is huge for Michigan. We also spoke to Chip Lindsay for the first time yesterday, Wink Martindale. Let's get into all of that on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Tuesday. We are back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. I was on the ground yesterday in Ann Arbor to meet up with Wink Martindale and Chip Lindsay, the two coordinators. Kind of interesting, some of the things that kind of came out of yesterday. Like Wink Martindale, it's funny, he was way more mum than he was on the In the Trenches podcast a couple weeks ago, where he was significantly more forthcoming. I feel like yesterday he was just like, well, we got to see. Is Rod Moore going to participate? Well, we got to see. Even though he just said he hasn't run since he injured himself a year ago at this time with the ACL tear. But that didn't mean he was completely devoid of things to say. But nonetheless, they were talking about a lot of who can step up, all of these things. I mean, it was just kind of more like, well, someone's going to step up. Someone's going to, there's going to be people who surprise us. I don't know that necessarily did a ton as far as really enlightening us or whatever. He says, let's just wait till spring ball. I'll be able to answer that better for you. Do we expect big things from Trey? Sure. Same thing with talking about Trey Pierce, Icawuna. Other two guys that we brought in have done a nice job. But he just really didn't have like a ton to say here. That said, I mean, I think that it's a good scenario for Michigan to have Wink Martindale back for another year, as you mentioned. The only person missing from the defensive staff is Kevin Wilkins, a below-the-line, behind-the-scenes coach who had been with Wink for some time, right? So to be missing Kevin Wilkins and yet everyone else, and they bring in David Denham. Did I have that right? Yeah. David Denham. It's difficult for me because I worked at United Talent Agency with David Denman, a.k.a. Roy from The Office. So I have to spin the gears a little bit there, which, by the way, he couldn't be more of a gentleman, David Denman. But I don't know David Denham. But otherwise, they've only subtracted one person from that. But he also said maybe it's a little overrated. You know, guys they get used to the idea that they have to go from one thing to the next and all of that. I don't think it's underrated, right? Because when you have the same voice telling you the same thing over and over again, like, hey, you need to do this. Hey, this is what we expect of you. I think that bodes very, very well for him, for the team. As far as did he give us anything that was relatively enlightening? I mean, which players excite him the most? Well, it's asking who your favorite child or grandchild is. It's just exciting that it's spring ball. Okay. Rod Moore's injury. Sharon's going to talk about the injuries. Competition at corner. Yeah, there's a bunch of them. I don't want to get into that. So not really really NFL style. So he's got 6 or 7 guys at nickel. Say Shamari Earls is a guy who certainly could be a player at corner. So there's just a lot of stuff that I just feel like he's not necessarily telling us. I'm not really sure why, because that's not really been Wink. I think one of the more exciting things that came out of what Wink Martindale had to say was talking about the Metcalf brothers, is that he said that, Tevis this is what he said, has really good feet. He just hasn't had a ton of experience compared to his brother. It's going to be fun to watch them to see exactly where they fit. Can we move people in and out at nickel and for bigger packages, maybe Tiger or whatever? So it'll be interesting to see. So it's going to be interesting just to kind of see how this all shakes out. Because again, we feel really good about the front. The back end is a little bit more questionable. The only thing he really kind of said about anything that was relatively substantial as far as it pertains to the current team is talking about Jayshon Barham and saying we rushed him from the edge a bit last year, but maybe we can rush him a little bit from depth. But we do want to get him more involved as far as that's concerned. I think that that in and of itself is interesting because it led to him saying this. He said, I said this today in a staff meeting. Do we have any bona fide first round picks? I'm not sure. We'll wait and see how the season goes. But we've got some day 2 draft picks. Again, remember, second and third rounds sitting there ready to go right now. And I can say confidently that the guys that we have, and we have more depth in every room. That is, I think, the key when it comes to the Michigan defense, because what was the big thing in 2023? It was the depth, because you looked at the talent that Michigan had. It was really good, but it wasn't a lot of first round talent in terms of what they brought. JJ McCarthy went number 10 overall, but I don't believe there was a defensive player that went at the top end, right? Because a lot of the talent that they had that went out of all of those guys were guys who were going this year. So they had Chris Jenkins, they had Mikey Sainris still, they had Junior Colson, but they had Michael Barrett, but those were not first round guys. But he says we've got some day 2 draft picks. Certainly Derek Moore is one that he considers to be that. Who else? Rayshawn Benny, I would assume. Who else could it be? The 2 linebackers. And then you've got just all of these others that we can kind of see and, see. We'll get to see. Can Troy Bowles be a guy? Who can Jimmy Rolder, Cole Sullivan, or Jaden Hood? Can they be guys? Right? Like Rod Moore, obviously, once he comes back healthy. So I think that can bode very well for the Michigan defense if they do, in fact, have that depth. Because if we want to look at it, you've got a scenario where you've got a 2 deep, if not more, along the defensive line. You've got a 2 deep, if not more, at linebacker. You've got a 2 deep, at least at safety. And I guess the question is, do you have it at nickel and do you have it at corner? And he says we've got 6 or 7 guys who can play nickel. And then you say Zeke Berry, Jair Hill starting at corner. Now, is Shamari Earls ready for it? Is Josiah Edmond? Who else is going to be, who are going to be those guys that step up at cornerback? Could it be Tevis Metcalf? It's certainly possible. And I think that if you can establish that type of mentality that Michigan had under Jesse Minter in particular, where it's just going to come at you in waves, then that could actually put Michigan in a really, really, really good spot. Let's talk about the offense and what Chip Lindsay had to say. He got a little bit more into it, but certainly got his share of Bryce Underwood questions. So let's get to that here in just a moment. But before we do, eating healthy doesn't have to be complicated. With Factor, you get chef-made, dietitian-approved meals that are ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes, so you can fuel your body without the hassle of cooking. Factor meals arrive fresh, never frozen, and with 40 options across 8 dietary preferences each week. You can customize your menu to fit your goals, whether that's Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. I love how Factor keeps you on track with healthy, delicious meals without time-consuming prep. Factor also offers smoothies. I love the smoothies, by the way. Breakfast and snacks. So you always have something nutritious ready to go. Eat smart with Factor. Get started with factormeals.com/factorpodcast and use the code FACTORPODCAST to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code FACTORPODCAST at factormeals.com/factorpodcast to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. All right, we're going to continue on here in just a moment, but before we do, get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with the complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast and from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Well, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, if you use the promo code SH5, you get 5% off of your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. All right, let's continue on. Here we are on Tuesday. The plan was to do this Monday. I got done writing and without plan, fell asleep on my couch for like 5 hours. Well, it was like 3 hours, but I wasn't really, I wasn't with it for the next couple hours. So if you're wondering why there wasn't a Monday, we're actually doubling up today to make up for it. We'll have the mailbag as the second episode, but this will start us out. It's been like that kind of event. My mom said she was in the same scenario. Like she she, was just like hanging around the house, like sat down and just fell asleep. I don't know if it's the weather or what it is. So apologies for that. We are back and doing it though. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. All right. We spoke to Chip Lindsay. He's a talker. I mean, you could kind of gather that from the In the Trenches. Got that Southern, I talk really fast, I have a lot to say type of thing. So we'll just kind of go through a little bit here and there of what he said. As far as the offensive line, it sounds like he said that Andrew Sprague's going to stay at right tackle. That's interesting. But he's just, again, he wants to have fresh eyes on the situation. That was really, I think, the only name that he mentioned other than Andrew Babalola. But he said about Andrew Babalola, is he ready yet? I don't know. But there's probably more better guys in front of him. So I guess that we're going to see as far as where that goes and what ends up kind of coming out of that competition. Obviously, I'd love to see Evan Link move inside and be able to find a left tackle that's a little bit more amenable to that scenario. But then again, did you bring in Lawrence Hattar for no reason? I don't know, man. They just got to find a really good five and all of that. So I just want to make sure that we're kind of in the right spot here as far as not necessarily doubling, tripling up on information here. But one of the things that he does say is, like, again, being a high school coach, he's looking to make sure that he's fitting what he does to the talent that they have. And he said, like, he wants to keep the Michigan DNA, talked about it, using the tight end a lot at North Carolina. They're going to end up doing that kind of thing. But as he said here, overall, the last couple of years, I watched this team because it's all the way back to the national championship team. We've stolen a lot of ideas, talking about when he was at North Carolina. Drone's always been really creative and about unbalanced and heavy sets and all those things. Those are things that we messed around with some in North Carolina. But for me, just the opportunity to be part of a team that's DNA is kind of what ours is, built on toughness and being physical. So from my standpoint, I wanted to keep that DNA. So you can understand that there's not going to be a holistic change as far as that is concerned, but you certainly can imagine the pass game is going to take off, right? So obviously he talked a ton about Bryce Underwood and Mikey Keene and those types of things. So with Mikey, I think one of the things that stands out about him from what Chip Lindsay said compared to some other aspects of like Bryce Underwood is he said, like, he already knows how to make the reads. He knows how to make the calls, the protections, all of those things. I'm just going to keep reminding you every time that we get to this, especially because we've been through some of this with the Cade McNamara, JJ McCarthy in 2021. We've seen some of this where people did not really understand what the difference was, right? Because it's like, well, JJ's got the live arm and Cade doesn't. But Cade knew how to do a lot of the things that JJ didn't yet. Now, one of the things that really benefits, I think, Bryce Underwood is I just think that he's certainly ahead physically of where JJ was at that time. And I think it's not that JJ didn't yearn for things, but I think like having a new offensive coordinator that's particularly a quarterback's coach, a guy who comes in and says, like, we're going to teach everybody the same thing. I think that's honestly going to help Bryce. And he said that Bryce is humble enough. He said he hadn't heard about what Bryce said on the Rich Eisen show, but he's like, Bryce is humble enough and wants to be coached. Like, that's the thing, is getting players that want to be coached, and Bryce fits into that. But Mikey's got that ability, as he said, to already be able to see what needs to be seen pre-snap. And that's what I'm trying to remind you is Cade had that capability that JJ didn't at that time. That's just as important, like I said, as being able to drop back and make the throw, right? Like being able to know what you have in front of you. Because we're not in high school anymore. You're dealing with defensive coordinators that know what they're doing, right? Week 2, Brent Venables is he's the head coach of Oklahoma, but he's taken over defensive play calling. He's a long-term, high-level defensive coordinator, right? He's going to be seeing some defensive schemes that are going to be frustrating. At Washington, there's Ryan Walters is there now. We saw when he was at Illinois that he can create some really frustrating defenses. So those are the types of things that I think that it'll be interesting to see where Bryce is able to kind of figure some things out as far as that's concerned, and what he's going to be able to do that. But as far as what he had to say about Bryce, he said, I'd say he's pretty advanced. I mean, he's highly decorated and all that in high school. A lot of them are, but his sheer physical size of who he is, he's 6'4", whatever he is, 220 plus pounds. Some of those guys come in and they're really light. They're not developed yet. depending on their age, and some of them nowadays, they reclass up and down, and that never used to happen. He talks about a little bit of that stuff. But then he continues, he says he's very advanced physically, and I think for him, the speed of the game is always something you worry about. Again, that's important. Coming into college compared to high school, and then how much he can handle, but really that goes with all of them. As he continues, our job this spring is to put those quarterbacks in all in different positions and see how they react, who handles things when it's a third down pressure play, who handles it the best when it's a red zone play, who does what we're supposed to do, who can manage the huddle, who can connect with the team. And at the end of the day, it's about who affects the other 10 guys the best. I think that's the guy that's going to play. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of how that ends up going. I would not be surprised if Mikey Keene started early and then Bryce Underwood takes over. I wouldn't be surprised if Bryce Underwood is the starter right out of the gates. Like he said to Rich Eisen, I'm coming for that starting job. Okay, well, you better be able to understand what's ahead of you. And he's starting as of today. I mean, granted, he got a little bit in bowl prep, but now like he'll get a chance with the ones. I'm sure in bowl prep, he didn't get chances with the ones very much because they were trying to beat Alabama. Now he's going to get that opportunity to go up against that extremely good defense and the waves that just keep coming, right? Whether he's with the ones or twos, like it's going to be a difficult thing, right? Quarterback job is open. As Chip Lindsay said, I wouldn't expect it to be any different at this point. Davis Warren, although not wearing any kind of braces or anything, I do not believe participating whatsoever in spring ball is from a physical standpoint. But I would imagine he, Jaden Davis, Mikey Keene, Bryce Underwood all in the mix, and you expect that it's going to be a two-man race when it's all kind of said and done. So it's going to be really interesting to see as far as that goes. I asked him about Justice Haynes, who I saw for the first time with my own eyes. We had a little bit of a snafu about where the press conference was going to be, so we ended up passing him in the hallway. And, I mean, he looks like an absolute beast. He looks like a tank. And to see those tapes and see how he can move, unbelievable. So here's what he had to say about Justice Haynes. He looks great in the winter program. Familiar with him when he was a high school player. Knew he was a really good player there. And I think he's going to bring that veteran presence that we're going to need in that room. Looks to be physical. He looks like he's in great shape. They all do, but he really does. And his approach is like Bryce I mentioned earlier. Like a lot of our guys, just being real, that his approach, in his approach, he's all business. He wants to be the best player he can be. He's a great influence on some of our other players as well, which I think is important being an older guy. We're excited about him. He's just going to add another dimension to the room. I also asked him about the wide receivers, and he said it's a great opportunity this spring for guys to get a lot of reps and get a lot of balls. And then who can make one-on-one contested catches, who can get open versus tight coverage, who can play the position at a high level, because when you get in the game planning and things, I think it's what you do as a coordinator. So it's going to be interesting. He had some good things to say about Donovan McCulley, but it's really just going to start today. Who are going to be those guys who can take that step? Who are going to be the guys that can make those plays? It's a blank slate for everybody. I think that bodes really, really well. And we'll see how that ends up going. All right. I want to talk a little bit before I'm going to kind of change course. So I was going to do a little bit of a spring ball primer. I think we kind of have beaten that horse to the ground at this point. So I want to talk about what Warde Manuel said to Sam Webb today, and much to the chagrin of certain of our favorite provocateurs out there in the ethos. So let's talk a little bit about that, about the whole Connor Stalions scenario here in just a moment. But before we do, March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra dollars to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, even who's cutting down the nets. I've got my eye on a few underdogs this year, and one of them is not UC San Diego, unlike I see a lot of other people picking that. And FanDuel makes it easy to pick, easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on, and the FanDuel app is super easy to use. And when I win, I get paid instantly, no waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com to get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. All right, some of our friends out there, we don't love naming names, but Kirk Barton and Justin Spiro, they're just going to have to cope because, right, the Buckeye Scoop, that's Kirk Barton, had his whole little countdown to something's happening, right? Like, it's like, I've got inside info. Michigan's about to have this. And he said that Michigan had proposed to the NCAA a postseason ban. Proposed it. that Michigan came up with the idea and proliferated that as if like that just shows you like what Michigan's willing to compromise on. And then Warde Manuel is asked about that essentially. So kudos to Sam on this. And Warde's like, we've never had a discussion as such with the NCAA. Like, no, we have not done that. So if you've been a long time watcher of the show and you're on the Michigan side of things and thus probably more so likely not just taking every single thing that I say and putting it through a fine-tooth comb and trying to figure out if what I'm saying it meets your scrutiny, that I'm talking now to the Buckeye fans out there and the MSU fans. It's still not what you think it is. I don't understand how when the NOA response came out, a lot of you were on the rival side were celebrating as if that told you something. It was no different than anything we have said all along. Michigan saying everything that we said, like massive overreach by the NCAA. Like we're not ceding any ground here. Like every time that there's like just any kind of anything with Michigan 2023, they act like there's some kind of new revelation that none of us on this side covered at all. Again, I have special understanding of everything that happened because I talked to Connor Stallions very directly and was the only one doing so for a couple months' time. So I know everything that happened there. And as much as you see people, I still see people saying like, oh, it was directed from, maybe even above Jim Harbaugh. It was just really directed. I saw a Buckeye article that said like Michigan was sign stealing. Like they didn't, have any kind of, they were Ohio State was the victim of sign stealing. Like, well, so was Michigan. Just so was pretty much every team in college football. That's not illegal. And there's always a lot of the rival people out there that want to try to say that we were wrong all along. I can't think of anything where we were actually wrong. They like to try to impugn my name by talking about Alex Yud as if I was hiding something. There's just nothing. I've told you this before. There's nothing to report when a student is let go from a football team. Like I ran it by my Buckeye boss in the writing side, and he said, "Yeah, we're not writing that." Someone who's never been charged that was let go for essentially rumor and innuendo. Okay, that's what it boiled down to. So if you're waiting for like a smoking gun of something that is much deeper for Michigan, you're going to be waiting a long time. Now, will the NCAA come down a little harder than I suggest that they might? They might try because they've clearly had it in for Michigan starting from Burgergate. But is it because there was like this insane competitive advantage? Like there's these insane things. I mean, Warde even pointed out Charlie Baker's thing, the fair and square. And I see people trying to, on the rival side, trying to change what that is to make it something different. Now, I just feel like this is kind of like one of the things that I said to one of the Buckeyes that came at me. Be above your idolatrous sports rivalry, right? And this goes for anyone. Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Texas. I don't really care. When it consumes you to the point of hate, to the point where you are just hanging on by every single possible thread, when you are feeding into the delusions of people who are just trying so hard because they hate Michigan so much and are just making things up just as they go in order to appease like the lowest common denominator of your fan base. Like you just need to get a little bit of a life is just kind of where I'm at with that. So I don't hate any of you guys when I talk about the Ohio State contingent, the Michigan State contingent, the people that love to come at me like the Buckeye Scoops or the J Books. I don't hate any of you guys. You won't include that in any of your stuff. Like I want you to have a good, honest, truthful, prosperous life. Okay? I don't love how every single thing with Michigan you are just so obsessed with. And you got the Warde Manuel thing out here, and I think that tells you a little bit more about where this is going direction-wise. And I understand you don't want to believe it, but there's a reason why I have not changed my tune from early November 2023 till now. It's the same tune. The story's still the story. No matter how much you want to add to it, how much you want to think that it's way worse than it actually had been, as much as you don't think that Michigan could, if you think Michigan couldn't have beat UNLV in Nebraska, without Connor Stallions, like, or Rutgers or Minnesota or East Carolina, Bowling Green. Like, I think I just named all the teams that Michigan played before Connor was suspended. If you don't think that Michigan couldn't have beaten those teams, if you don't think that Michigan couldn't have beaten, like, I can't help you. You just don't know ball. Okay? Like, that's just is what it is. But be above your idolatrous sports rivalry, number one, and, you know, get a life outside of that and understand that we're not just saying things because we are the Michigan media and we're trying to protect the program. I don't really care that much, right? Like, I've said a lot of things about the Connor scenario that certainly don't help the program. When I tell you that Michigan bungled that whole scenario in the beginning, that's not helping the program. I'm trying to tell you that there was a lot to it. And there are some actors within the university that I look at with a little bit of a squinty eye, because it's like, why did you do what you did? Things could have gone a lot different. Anyway, that's going to do it for episode 1 today. We are going to be back with a mailbag that will air later. We're just going to space that out just by a couple hours. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you again soon. Peace.